薄いのアホ。
プリズムパワーメイクアップカードレディー。
Welcome to Shojo and Tell, where we discuss shoujo manga and tell who's hot and who's not, talk about themes, and just generally geek out. Today, November 11th, 2017, we'll be shoujo and telling about the series Millennium Snow by Bisco Hatori. I'm your host, Ashley McDonald, and I'm joined by Caitlin Moore.
Hi.
So who are you, Caitlin?
Oh, just some nobody.
Yeah.
No, I write and run the blog. I have a heroin problem, and I am also a contributor and editor for Anime Feminist. And I'm just sort of a lifelong lover of shoujo manga.
Yay!
Yay!
So what are some of your favorite shoujo manga?
It's really, really hard to pick. I'm actually literally sitting here staring at my bookshelf right now. If I really want to, go hipster.
Yeah, do you have your mainstream pick and your hipster pick? I think that's...
Well, one of them is definitely Basara, which is unfortunately not super available right now, but if you can get your hands on it, I really recommend it. Fruits Basket. I definitely prefer stuff with a fantasy element. And Yona of the Dawn. God, how can I not mention Yona? But yeah, as you can see, it's stuff that sort of have a fantastical element that are sort of more leaning towards character driven, but also sort of action adventure series.
Yeah, I feel like I was actually just having this conversation with somebody in regards to them being why aren't you doing Boys Over Flowers and Kimi ni Todoke? And I'm like, well, I want to do those, but I actually don't feel like people talk much about the more slice of life stuff.
I can talk about Boys Over Flowers.
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be complimentary, but I can talk a lot about Boys Over Flowers.
I was just commenting on in the fandom. I was I feel like I don't really see people, effuse over slice of life things as much as, of course, fantasy things. I feel like that's just a general trend in young adult literature too. We all want to read Hunger Games and Twilights and Harry Potters. But yeah, all right, Millennium Snow. There's definitely some Twilight vibes going on here. But all right. So I'll start off with my usual, Millennium Snow is available in North America from Viz Media. So you can buy it physically and digitally from Barnes & Noble and places like that. Hatori is the creator of Ouran High School Host Club, and Viz is publishing her latest series, Behind the Scenes. Yeah, so I guess I kind of expected maybe this was out of print physically, but was shocked to see no, Barnes & Noble still had it in stock. And I guess that's because Hatori's stuff is still very popular. And my usual warning of my romantic partner, Jeff, works at Viz Media, so there's not really a conflict of interest, but I do have some monetary gain here, I guess. But I'm sure he would love if you use the app to read Hatori's work, because that's all he does is make apps for Viz. Yay!
I'm more of a physical book kind of girl.
That makes sense, but...
Well, library.
True. Library. I'm all about, also borrowing stuff from the library. That's fun. Yeah. So do you want to give a short plot synopsis of what Millennium Snow is all about?
Sure. So Millennium Snow is a vampire story about a young woman named Chiyuki who was born with a heart defect and is pretty much dying of it until she meets a vampire named Toya, who in this series, in this version of the vampire mythology, vampires can choose one partner to live with them for 1,000 years. And Chiyuki, because she has been facing her own mortality for her entire life, desperately wants to be his partner. Pretty much immediately after she meets him, she's wants him to be it, but he does not want that because he does not want to inflict eternal life on anyone. But he does sort of use his blood to cure her, no, not cure, but to extend her lifespan for an indeterminate amount of time. And from there, it's just kind of, for most of the series, it's sort of an episodic story looking at different creatures from folklore. It's a romantic comedy. at times.
And some
then,
of it.
well, so yeah, there's an interesting thing there. It is a very much a sort of supernatural romance. Now, the thing that's interesting when I said romantic comedy is that the series was broken up. The first half came out, and then Hatori started working on Ouran. So they decided to have her work on that. And then 10 years later, when Ouran had wrapped up, she came back to it and finished the story.
Which is, quite frankly, amazing and, like, great. But I was kind of like, wait, what? Honestly, when I asked you to do this, I thought it was only those 2 volumes because that's all I remembered from back when I initially read it. And I was like, yeah, it's 2 volumes. And I looked it up and I was like, why are there 4 in this app?
Oh, yeah. Like, if it were just the first 2 volumes, then I would not be, like, as effusive over this series. I think it definitely, and it makes sense that the second half is a big improvement over the first half, which, because I mean, she's got 10 more years of storytelling experience and also drawing experience and paneling experience. And so, I think the second half is really the part that makes it something special.
I agree. And yeah, as I was saying, like, my familiarity with the series was that I remember reading volume 1, I guess back when it came out in 2007, because I was still in high school then, and my friends and I, like, traded manga volumes still then. Yeah.
Oh,
so I remember
memories.
One of them had, I know, it was so good back then. So one of them at least had the first volume, and I remember reading it and being like, this was okay. Like, it wasn't that into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, seeing like you be like, it's so good. And I was like, I must have missed something here. And I did. And it was that there are 2 other volumes that are actually good. I was like, oh, this makes a lot more sense to me now.
Yeah, it's definitely a big difference because the themes and the story and the themes don't really come into fruition until the sort of final act of the series.
Yeah, it definitely gets like big quality boost, and also the way that it ends in volume 2, I'm like, this is the worst possible ending. We'll get there, but like, oh my god. I'm glad in her side panel she was like, yeah, I regret that.
Yeah, that was another thing, but we'll get there.
Yeah. So do you have a particular favorite thing about this series?
I mean, I really like series that sort of deal with mortality. So, the series kind of made for me.
It's just made specifically for you.
Yeah. I mean, despite that, I'm not generally really into vampire stories. But I think sort of there's a sort of like a melancholy to the whole thing.
Yeah.
That I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it's I'm also not into vampire stories, but because I feel like we've grown up in an age where all the vampire stories we're told are like alternative vampire stories, and I'm like, I don't even know what a real vampire story is at this point. Like,
I know
all we get is the good vampires who like don't really want to suck humans' blood and like blah blah blah. I'm like, what? I don't know. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think vampire mythology has definitely evolved. I mean, it's been evolving ever since, like, vampires were originally a thing. And I do think that Twilight sort of ushered in a new era of vampire mythology. But there was also like, I think in the 80s there was like a brief vampire boom.
Yeah.
There was Buffy. Vampires have sort of always held a really prominent place in popular imagination.
Yeah.
And they've always sort of evolved with the times.
Yeah, they've always been kind of sexy, like Anne Rice novels, I guess. But again, I've never actually read an Anne Rice novel, so like I don't really know what I'm talking about. Yeah. I also really like the second half of the series, though. I like the folklore elements juxtaposed against more modern things. I also really just like stories with snow in them. Really obsessed with snow. I miss you, Snow.
Where did you used to live?
I used to live in Philadelphia. So now, living in San Francisco, it's like, it's the same weather all the time. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was interesting that she also introduced vampire or werewolf boy, and then like he's very unimportant. I was like, oh, poor Satsuki.
Yeah, I think she was planning on having him play a bigger role, but the story just kind of, took a different direction. And, when you're writing weekly, like most manga artists are, you don't really have the opportunity to go back and rewrite and be like, oh, well, I wanted to do this with this character, but I didn't end up doing that. Now I can go back and sort of reshape that. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So when you're doing installments, the story, you just sort of, you have less control of the story in a way where it's like, you just have to sort of let the story take you where it will.
Yeah, so would you generally like recommend this series to people? You give it a thumbs up?
Oh yeah. I'm picky. I read a lot of Shojo because I do a weekly column about it. I would not recommend probably the majority of series I've read.
But this one
I do recommend.
Ooh. All right, so I guess we should dive into more talk of specific scenes and themes.
All right, let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah, I will warn any listeners, if you hadn't read the manga before now, it was probably safe to listen to that and be like, yes, we recommend it. It's good. But now we will spoil all the things. And if you are the person who cares about that, like, don't listen to the rest of this until you read it. Yay. Yeah, so, I mean, the first scene is sort of, that's important, is getting Chiyuki's backstory of generic, like, weak heart, sort of not medically defined, whatever things that sets up why she would need Toya. And I'm like, all right, I don't know. I get kind of tired of weak setups of like, yeah, you didn't give them a specific disease. You're just like, I don't know, people feel bad.
Yeah.
And there actually was, from a personal standpoint, this is sad, but I'll say it anyway, because like while reading it, I thought it. But like my dad was recently diagnosed with a very rare blood cancer. That's, his body makes too much blood.
Ooh.
Yeah. So they have to like do weekly. It's currently weekly. It should be monthly from now on. They have to like draw his blood every week to lower his red blood cell count. And yeah, when I've told people, they're like, so he needs a vampire. And I'm like, yeah, basically he needs a vampire to like come and suck his blood because he has too much of it. So that's really, I was like, this is interesting. Like, come on, there are tons of diseases you can give people. That's how I feel.
It's true. I work in a preschool. I am trained on bloodborne pathogens, and man, there's you don't mess around with blood. You don't. You just don't.
Ugh. Blood is gross. Yay! So vampire stories. Woo. So then we're introduced to Toya, who is, has the angst of, since he's going to live 1,000 years, he's like, no, but I don't want to, and I don't want to drag a human into that. Like, that's too long. Blah. Existential crisis. And I'm like, yep, yeah, you seem like a normal teenager, except you're a vampire. Cool. And then we meet Satsuki, and he kind of has the opposite problem, I guess, wherein he's like, it's not like exactly the opposite, but he's like, I'm normal. I'm not a werewolf. What are you talking about? And has to struggle to accept himself in a different way. Like, I cannot at all deal with the fact that I'm not, quote unquote, normal.
Right. He's sort of trying to suppress it.
Yeah. Even though they go to a weird nightclub and then like the movie, that whole scene was weird to me. I was like, what is happening? Whatever. I do admit that throughout most of these, especially the first 2 volumes, like by the second half, I'm like, okay, I don't feel this as much. But I definitely was like, yeah, I can see why Viz was like, yeah, we'll publish it in 2007 at like the height of Twilight hype. Because I'm like, I see it. It's all there. I'm like, did Stephanie Meyer read it?
Well, and also Ouran hype was very strong at that time too.
Yeah. So they're like, I can cash in on so much hype. Yes.
Because the Ouran anime series was pretty new at that point.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much all of volume 1, right? It's just like setup of paranormal people. They're silly people. Oh, I guess we didn't mention Yamimaru. He's a great character. I love him.
Oh, he's really cute.
Yeah, I think I actually liked him more before I knew he was a human. I was like, no, stay a bat.
I mean, I think he's normally a bat. He just has human transforming powers because he's a vampire's familiar.
Fine. So then there's a big like leap in volume 2 where suddenly they're in Switzerland, and I'm like, wait, what? How? Okay.
Yeah, no, that was definitely like, what?
I was like, did I skip a chapter?
Yeah, I mean, it's a episodic comedy logic. You just sort of roll with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, they did give a reason eventually in that, like, Satsuki's grandma won a trip in a sweepstakes or something. I'm like,
I mean,
okay.
it's a very generic anime reason. Like, I feel like every anime where or manga where characters go abroad, it's just like, oh, we won a thing. Like, I definitely remember Cardcaptor Sakura doing that
Yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah,
they get lost in the Alps. That's really fun. I think that was the confusing part, was just that they were like suddenly lost in the snow. Not like if they had just been there and it was normal, I'd be like, okay. I guess I had a similar moment in volume 3 though, where it was like, and this is the 11th snow, and I was like, what happened to the 10th snow? Did I miss a chapter? I'm so confused. Because they labeled the side story that was at the end of the volume 10th snow, and I was like, oh my god. Yeah, so they get lost in the Alps and in time, because of course they did. They find a mansion that is stuck in like Victorian, like 18th century something. And there's a little girl who's there. What was her deal again? I actually can't. Isabel.
She died. Her parents built this mansion for her because she had a terminal illness in like the late 18th century. And then she died, and her parents moved out, and she thought it was her parents abandoning her because she was a ghost.
Right.
But it was just they couldn't handle being around a place that was so strongly associated with her memory.
Sad.
It was sad.
It was sad. And then so they have to unstick her from time, because that's obviously the only solution.
Well, the problem is that she is unstuck from time. And Chiyuki almost dies because time is so weird and it's pulling her back to before Toya cured her with his blood.
I actually found this chapter semi-confusing reading it. I was like, wait, what?
I've read it a bunch of times because the thing is, I keep being like, oh, I'm okay. Now is when I'm going to write about Millennium Snow. Now is when I'm going to write about Millennium Snow. And then I don't. And I eventually bought the series instead of checking it out of the library, and I still haven't written about it. So.
Oh no. You're going to do it after this, I swear.
Yes.
We're going to figure out what about mortality and time and snow there is to say. So yeah, that's a fun little side chapter. And then the worst part of this entire manga.
Oh god.
Keigo. So they go back to Japan, whatever. Now it's spring or whatever. Summer. And they're like, oh, and then Chiyuki's cousin comes, and there's some backstory about how he raised her the whole time and was loving to her, and she thinks that he's gone to America to study something that's not actually like becoming a doctor and curing her, but that's what he's really doing.
I think she thought it was like a international accounting or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so then, he sees that Chiyuki really likes Toya, so then...
But Toya's a scary monster.
Yes, he's a scary vampire monster. So then he also just gets very jealous and is like, no, you can't do this, like, I'm the true one who's always been by your side and all these things. And I was like, no, it's terrible.
And then he ties her up in a room. He
literally ties her up and locks her in a room. And I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, that was definitely a series low point. I actually kind of liked the way the chapter concluded, where she's like, I used to feel this way. Like, this is how I used to feel about you. Like, I was in love with you, but I'm in love with someone else, and I want to share this feeling that I learned how to feel with you, with them. And I thought that was actually a pretty nice ending, especially since shoujo manga does tend to get hung up on like first love stories. And so it's good to like actually have a character who's like, yeah, you were my first love, but I've moved on. But yeah, like just everything before that is just like, it's so gross and creepy. And I feel like that is very much a product of its time, because like I said, been reading a lot of shoujo manga, including a lot that was released during that time period. Like, I've been reading Blackbird, which is a little newer. It's a few years after the first couple of volumes, but like, that sort of trope of the jealous guy tying up the girl, and it was just because he was so passionate. Like that was pretty commonplace at the time.
Great. Yeah, he definitely did it because he's like, I feel a sense of ownership since I've given up so much of my life for you, sort of deal. And I was just like, ugh, no. And I agree that the ending was very sweet. I was like, aw. But I was like, but you didn't deserve that good ending, Keigo. Like, you didn't deserve it at all.
Yeah, no, he didn't. He does not deserve for her to talk to him ever again.
Yeah, because like the beginning of the chapter is silly. She gets hit in the face with a basketball because Sasuke and Toya are playing basketball. And then at the end, he hits it, like Keigo goes to attack Toya, but then ends up hitting Chiyuki over the head with a rock. I was like, that girl has a serious concussion right now. Like, oh my god. You needed to add to her misery of dying. Now she's never gonna. Yeah, she's not gonna remember you, Toya, because she just got hit in the face twice in the span of like nothing. Ugh. I do. Again, Hatori wrote in a column like, I definitely regret the locking her in a room thing. That was my own immaturity, is like what you wrote in a side column in later volumes.
Yeah, I really appreciated that, honestly, like because she did like mature a lot. Like I said, she did mature a lot as a writer between those two halves, and the fact that she can look at something that she did before and just be like, yeah, this is actually not a really cool thing to have written.
Yeah.
I think, and part of it might just be the trends of the times, like stuff like that is less positively regarded now.
Yeah.
In general, like shoujo manga is very trend driven. And stuff like that is not really part of the trend. But yeah, the fact that she owned up like, hey, this was kind of messed up is definitely something that I think is pretty cool.
I thought it was cool too. I also kind of like how in a later volume, somebody impersonates Keigo, and like because of how he was portrayed before, you kind of buy it, but then like he still gets redeemed a little because it wasn't him, and I'm like, oh snap, that was actually good storytelling. Yay! Something good came out of this. Yay! Anyway, he sucks. Don't like him.
No.
Now we're on to the good half of this manga. Yay, the good half. So I think there are generally, I split it into like 3 broad-ish arcs. The first one being that there are like 3 to 4 episodes where it's steeped in folklore. So the first one being they have a new school nurse who seems kind of like creepy, and they call her Yuki Onna, which is Snow Woman. And they see her like creepily burying things in the snow, and they're like, what's up with this? But it turns out that she is not a killer that they thought she was. And then the other folklore story that I guess has more weight for the rest of the manga, because that character becomes more of a recurring character, is about kotonushi, which are, is it a specific animal, or is it just like any animal that eats words?
I'm not sure.
Can't really remember if it was like specific to being a fox or whatever. But yeah, so it's the basic story is, there are these animals. If you feed it kind words, then it'll be nice. If you feed it bad words, it'll be bad. And this one's coming on the end of its life, but a girl has found it and been like, I will nurse you back to health. She does not know that it's a kotonushi, but she is getting bullied at school, so people have written hateful words, and she starts feeding it that, and then gets a little out of control. But then they figured it out, and actually it was good all along. It only like 8 good words, and it was a good kotonushi. And I was like, I like this story mostly because it reminded me of another parable, which is the one about 2 wolves, which goes like, I think it's like nobody really knows where it's from, but they like attribute it to Cherokee or some Native American tribe. But basically that, an old man tells like a grandson, I have this fight that's going on inside of me, and it's going on inside of you too. And it's a fight between 2 wolves thing. Yeah. And so it's like the one wolf is like everything good. It's like honesty and love and whatever. And then the other wolf is everything bad. It's jealousy and hate and all those bad things. And then the boy will be like, okay, so which wolf wins? And the old man's like, the one you feed. I'm like, yes, I am down with retelling this story over and over and over again until we understand it. I also just kind of liked because telling a story that has a 10-year gap. I mean, she kind of like ignores that, and it's just like, there's new technology. Who cares? Whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
we have smartphones now.
Yeah, we have smartphones now. Like, just go with it. But I appreciate that bridging of old folklore stuff with like the awfulness that the internet has wrought of people just being able to spew hateful things about you.
Yeah, and I think that's always sort of the one of the more interesting parts of urban fantasy stories, is when they sort of address that, and without just being like, oh yeah, all the folklore stuff is dying out because of technology, but rather showing like how they have evolved and coexisted with technology, which is definitely attack that. Well, Millennium Snow kind of does both, because it's said that like the vampires are kind of disappearing. Right. But like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of like folklore stuff, and it's not like our lives are without modern mythology. So yeah, no, that was a good story. And then it introduced a new character.
Introduced a new character who kept coming. Her name was Kaede Miyamoto, something like that. Miyajima? No, it wasn't her last name. Why can't I remember her name?
I wish I had brought the book into the. Oh wait, do I have it? Yes, I do. Miyajima.
Okay. Yeah, and in the theme of like old things are existing with new things, that was kind of something that I was like, okay, clearly these things are dying out, but it's also playing with the theme of like Miyajima's idea is that the one thing that always lasts is words, and she's always reading, and so that's how she knows all these folklores and all these old things. And like, that's cool, but I wish that like, this vampire lived for 1,000 years. He had to have seen he lived through so many changes. And I'm just like, I feel like the thing that's not acknowledged here is that so many things will change with time, that like knowing the past is actually a detriment at that point, in a way. Because if you can, because this manga is also obsessed with like, I don't want to forget you. So much time will pass and I will forget, and that will be sad. And I'm like, there's a function to forgetting that like fiction never wants to acknowledge, unless it's like a trauma thing. Like, of course you want to forget that, right? But like, I'm like, you need, because there's also a scene of Toya being like, I have to learn all these things so that I can hop around the world and blend in better. And I'm like, at some point that has to be a detriment to you. Like, I swear that has to be like a super telling thing, that it's like, you're weird. That you're definitely weird.
It's a pretty common thread in vampire stories that they can't stay in one place too long.
Yeah, and that's I mean, that is the thing that eventually gets the Johan in trouble, is everybody finds him out all the time, so then his wife ends up like killing people.
Yeah.
I just feel like he didn't really like totally pull the thread together with memory theme, but all right.
Yeah. It was close, but I feel like there was, if they had sort of started turning towards that instead of the episodic stuff earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that plot thread did not totally come together. But I mean, oh well.
I feel like a lot of the plot threads didn't really like fully come together, but you're still like, oh, this is a good story.
Yeah. It is definitely more emotionally driven.
Yeah.
Which is like, and I mean, they're emotionally story driven things where there's just like a ton of like plot holes. And it's like, well, this is just happening because that's what would be the most emotionally impactful at the moment. And there are story-driven things that are like, we're not going to really fully explain it, but the feels are there, so we'll hand wave it.
But yeah, then so we went briefly in the future, but the stuff immediately after the folklore things is that we go back and find more about Toya's past with his grandfather. And so Toya had been led to believe that his grandfather was dead.
Right.
And that one of the last things that they had discussed was Toya being like, I can suck your blood and then we can be together forever. his grandfather being like, no, let's not do that. So he was like, he rejected me, blah, blah, blah. But it turns out, plot twist, he's still alive, but now he has like Alzheimer's or some form of dementia.
Yeah.
So Toya starts going to see him just to be like, oh, what's he like? And eventually, of course, they have an interaction. And then in the end, he does remember him.
Yeah, a moment of lucidity.
It's the Notebook, but with a vampire and a grandfather. So now we get to new scary vampire who tries to attack Chiyuki at first as Kei, which is cool. So his deal is like trying to warn off Toya and Chiyuki because they have now become a thing. I guess we should talk about that.
Oh yeah.
Is love confession time, I guess.
They sleep together.
They had some sexy times together, man. Right?
It was very fade to black.
Yeah. They had some cute snuggles in there. It was good.
Yeah. We see the aftermath.
Yes, because so Toya's grandfather had convinced Toya that it was like, yes, wait, I can reciprocate Chiyuki's desires and feelings for me. Like, cool, let's do it, at least like romantically. He's not sure about the life partner thing yet.
Yeah, reconnecting with his grandfather sort of made him be like, oh right, it's okay to actually have relationships with humans.
Yeah,
it might be hard sometimes, but at the same time, like, emotional connections are important.
Right, that's actually what I really liked was it was so realistically like sad the way he asked it, being like, we'll probably get mad at each other and maybe hate each other sometimes, and it will be hard, but are you cool with all those conditions? And Chiyuki's just like, yes. I was like, okay. Yeah, so then, as soon as he's like, maybe we should be life partners or whatever, a vampire that has lived alone for the past 800 years but is reaching his 1,000-year dying point comes and is like, let me tell you my tragic story, like maybe you don't want to do that. And then so Toya leaves in the middle of the night apparently and is like, whatever. And Chiyuki's health is now deteriorating again, so then she's like trying to convince Johan. She's like, no, I'm pretty sure like your life was worth it. And then so Toya had actually been on a mission. He comes back and is like, I had been on a mission to like retrace your steps and find out what all these humans you had interacted with thought in the end, even though terrible things happened in the past. And like now it's cool. So you know what? Human connection's fine. Like let's do it, Chiyuki. Like let's not let you die right now. And that is the end. Yeah.
Yep.
And I had many feelings along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So many feelings.
Many feelings were had. But yeah, like I've said, just the way that Hatori's everything about her work matured so much in those like 12 years between the first and second half. Like even like visually, like in her earlier volumes, like her anatomy was kind of wonky. Her panels were like, her paneling was kind of, and her layouts were like kind of hard to follow, kind of busy. And then like the second volume comes and like, she's got 10 years of drawing Ouran and everything looks fantastic. And like the layouts are actually like so much easier to follow. And
yeah, I think the thing about the anatomy that I always noticed, I was like, what is happening with their shoulder blades in the early
like whenever
volumes?
Someone didn't have a shirt on,
I was like,
they have giant shoulder blades.
But it definitely got better after that. It's always really fun because normally, certainly with longer series, you normally see that transformation happen within the series itself. Like the art gets smoother, suddenly the storytelling's better.
Yeah, but it's so gradual that you don't think about it necessarily until like one day you're on the last volume and you like glance through the first volume again and you're like, oh my gosh, this is unrecognizable.
Yeah, but here there's a very like clear shift. I think the volume covers are also very different for the second two.
Oh, they're beautiful.
So you can definitely see the shift.
Well, I've never seen the cover for the second one because I had got the double volume ones.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a 2-in-1.
Yeah, like honestly, what what made me pick the series was an Anime News Network review of the 3rd volume. And the cover was so beautiful. And I read it, and they were sort of talking about all of the like the sort of like, I keep pulling out this word, like the wistfulness of it. And I was like, okay, that sounds like my kind of stuff. You can tell where I'm censoring myself.
Yeah.
But like that definitely sounds like my kind of story. So eventually, like, I started checking books out of the library, and I checked out Millennium Snow, and I was into it.
Okay, so you didn't read it until like most of it had come out in North America.
Oh, all of it was out.
Okay.
I read it all in one. So I definitely like, because when you kept saying, oh, this is kind of Twilight with Ouran, some Ouran host club humor, I never really thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Because I don't like Twilight.
I have a complicated relationship with Twilight.
I had the whole time been thinking like, this is actually like a really different sort of story than what popular vampire fiction in the US has become.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like when I think about just the first couple of volumes on their own, I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
I mean, it did precede Twilight, but
yeah, but there are some serious scenes like when they're in the snow. Mm-hmm. And Satsuki's like, I can keep you warm. Like, I'm the werewolf. I'm like, what? Is this like a common thing? Like, this is exactly what happens in the 3rd book of Twilight.
Werewolves versus vampires is a long-standing thing.
Yeah, but the like getting lost in the snow and then like keep a maiden warm thing. I was like,
mm-hmm.
What?
But like, and I think what really stood out about it for me is Chiyuki. I think she's a pretty different kind of protagonist, because I'm thinking about like a lot of vampire fiction featuring young women.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what is there's Twilight and there's Buffy.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess there's like the Vampire Diaries, but I know nothing about that. Or True Blood. I don't know anything about that either. But like, but she isn't like asking him initially to save her because she's in love with him. She's asking him. She asks him initially because she's dying, and she's scared to die. So it was kind of like a very self-centered request. It wasn't immediately presented as this grand love story. And she did fall in love with him, but she was motivated more by fear of her own death. And, instead of having the whole like, I'm so angsty because I've lived forever. I'm so very old, even though I look like a handsome 18-year-old, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, well, that's true. He actually is an 18-year-old.
Yeah, he actually is 18. And it's interesting because I think if you ask most 18-year-olds if they wanted to live 1,000 years, they'd be like, hell yeah. But he sort of reacts to it with like this cosmic horror.
Yeah.
But it's sort of the tension between her fear of death and his fear of longevity.
Yes, and the series is very obsessed with how some characters have too much time, maybe, and others have not enough time to be living.
Right.
And I guess I do appreciate that Toya is like, I'm actually 18 and I hate the thought of living 1,000 years. Like, that is interesting. It gives me pause because I hate that, like, as a society, we're always like, high school is the best years of your lives. And I'm like, I don't want that to be true. But, like, if we keep telling ourselves it's true, we're going to keep feeling it. So, okay. I guess the point is that he gets over that in the end. But, we get, like, a brief 3 pages into their future life.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they've aged. I don't think they're going to be, like, 18 forever. Probably, like, I don't know, early mid-20s.
Yeah, they Chiyuki definitely looked like she aged.
Yeah,
a little bit. I guess I was definitely like, how do the physics of you aging go? I guess you stop at adulthood, because Johan doesn't look like an old man; he just looks like an older adult. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, once again, it's something that's like, don't really think too hard about it.
I like that. That's Satsuki, definitely with him. She was like, yeah, he lives 200 years. I don't know. Is that long? Is that good? That seems like a good,
That seems like a
middle
pretty good
ground.
lifespan.
Yeah, that seems good. I'm like, okay. He seems very nonchalant about it. I'm like, all right, I guess for 200 years, y'all are going to be like a trio.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, certainly with Chiyuki, she was not what gave me any Twilight vibes. It was definitely just the like, we playfully hate each other as vampires and werewolves,
Yeah.
and we fight over the same girl thing. I was like, all right, I've read this story before. Yeah, so I mean, you were particularly interested in the mortality aspects of this. So did you like what in particular attracts you to that story, I guess?
I mean, it's hard to say. It's sort of I've just always been like I mean, I keep saying these words, like always been sort of drawn to that sort of melancholy atmosphere. I mean, I was writing like angsty fanfic about Animorphs when I was like 10 years old.
Yes.
That's just sort of something I've always been drawn to, but it's really hard to do well without it being like sad stuck. Cause and plus like mortality is an interesting theme because it's something that no one really knows how to deal with, right?
Right.
So having series that like specifically look at that and talk about it, and not just dealing with your own mortality or dealing with your own lack of mortality, but actually taking a look at the tension between, like you said, having too much or not enough, I think was a really interesting tack for the series to take. And also, like, I mean, it's not just that. I really like the character. I like Chiyuki as a character a lot. I think she's a really fun protagonist. So yeah, like, I mean, it's definitely something that's hard to super define for myself.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's just something that I've always really just been drawn to.
Cool. I guess, yeah, so I, in our shared doc, wrote down a bunch of nonsense about time that I guess I will try to parse in my own brain. So, like, throughout this, it's a lot of, like, it wraps into more mortality and whatever. Because it's a lot of, like, well, what am I going to do with all this time? Like, it seems like I will just rack up a series of hurts. Like, I will hurt people, they will die, that will hurt me.
Yeah.
Is there a limit to how much I can learn within that amount of time? Like, what's the point of having more time if you're just gonna do more things that suck, basically? Which I think is a thing that we think about on a daily basis. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, okay, I could have 25 hours in a day, but like, it just means I'm gonna have to work to do something harder. And for me, there were other parts in the manga that really struck a chord of, like, I guess again with the folklore with Miyajima, like her desire to be like, she reads a lot, but she also wants to shut out some of the world, like the more hateful parts of the world. And I'm like, as a content creator in a world where we all suffer from not having any time to like consume the content, but we all want to make content because we all want to do something important, but what's the point if nobody listens to it? Like, it is the thing that severely personally holds me back normally.
Oh yeah, I live my life in pretty much a constant state of low level existential dread.
Don't we all?
So yeah, like I definitely feel that, and that is something, that is something also that I really like, is just like, none of us have enough time for everything. But if you do have, like, what if you do have so much time? It's like, I've inadvertently took a week off from work. It just sort of worked out that way.
Okay.
And so like, I was out of town for part of it, but like, this is my third day off at home in a row. And I have a lot of non-job work that I could be doing, but a lot of it is just sort of like, what am I going to do with myself today? And even if I start the day with a solid plan, a lot of that just sort of ends up being time wasted.
Yeah. I often, when I do have, I'm like, I have free time. I specifically do not have to do like any podcast work or whatever, read a book or anything. I'm like, I can read a random book, but then I get so paralyzed with like, oh God, there's so many things to do. I could watch
So
an
many
anime,
options.
I could play a video game, I could read a book. Like, which one do I pick? And then I just like don't do any of them. I'm like, what am I doing? So stupid. But I was specifically, again, because I was obsessed with like, okay, if they live for 1,000 years, like so much stuff changes in 1,000 years. They must have lived through like so many things. I was really got stuck on the fact that Toya and his grandfather know how to fix clocks, because clocks are a fairly modern thing now, that are very ubiquitous, that tell time super precisely. Like, we're all connected to the internet, all our doohickey computers, smartwatches, smartphones, they all update automatically now based on, I don't know what the universe tells it to do. Like, I don't know. There's a database somewhere updating all that. And I'm just like, but that's so, like, I get that having I feel like measuring time in that way, like, not even just by clocks, but by being like, I have specifically 1,000 years to live, is such a modern way of thinking that, like, it's very modern existentialism that I'm like, but you're grafting it onto something very old, and okay. Yeah, and then I was reading these like just weird old. So this is actually, I found this old essay from 1944 that's actually from like an anarchist publication, but some of the lines jumped out at me because I was like, that seems kind of freakishly accurate to this. I mean, the article is much more focused on like how it's used as a labor tactic to kind of exploit people. And, you know, I've read other essays that are like, yeah, you know, what's a mark that you're an important person is that you have no time these days. Because, like, either, yeah, like, if you're not an important person, like, of course you have nothing to do. Like, you're not whiling your days away making a mega corporation or whatever the heck it is that so rich people do. But yeah, so then it's like, since we didn't have clocks before and all those things, and this is a relatively new phenomenon, part of the end of the essay is like, now the movement of the clocks sense the tempos of men's lives. They become the servant of the concept of time, which they themselves have made and are held in fear, like Frankenstein by his own monster. And I was like, ah, yes, the monster in this story is the vampire who is afraid of this human-made concept of time that I guess he got from somewhere, that's somehow vampires always had time. Like, I don't.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because like he was raised by humans. Like, it's hinted at in the story, or maybe outright stated, I don't remember exactly, but there's not a lot of vampires out in the world. They don't really have a lot of contact with each other. It presumably his father was a vampire, and it seems like, you know, he doesn't even know that Toya exists. His mom just had him and raised him as part of with her family. So he doesn't have a frame of reference for the vampire lifespan. He only has a frame of reference for the human lifespan. And
it's true.
And like I said, he's very self-aware. That, well, not self-aware, but he's definitely like I said, not a lot of 17, 18-year-olds would be like, oh no, living for 1,000 years. But he sort of lived, and you know, this is getting back to the mortality thing. He is living with the knowledge that everyone around him is going to die. He's going to watch everyone he cares about die over and over and over and over. And even if he doesn't stay around long enough, that means that he cannot have a connection, that kind of human connection that he needs, that he craves, because it's implied in this book that like vampires, it seems like a very a major, I mean, I know this doesn't make sense, but like a major evolutionary disadvantage that they're social animals, but they also are the only ones that live a super long time like that, right?
Yeah.
So like he even if he doesn't stick around, he can't stay with anyone long enough to form that really strong connection, that lifelong connection that humans really need. And I guess like that's the function of sort of being able to choose a partner. Right. But he also doesn't want to force his partner to live through that either. Because even if you have like,
you're the one person.
Yeah, even if you have one person for your entire lifespan, like people can't just have one person in their life.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think that's sort of the thing with time isn't even just that he has too much of it. It's just that it's not equitable.
Right. It just doesn't compute with how he interacts with people.
Right.
Yeah. I guess now, thinking about Toya's backstory some more, I'm like, how does he know that he lives for 1,000 years if he didn't know his grandfather or his dad?
I think like Yamimaru might have come along and told him.
Oh, okay, that would make. That's the only thing that makes sense, I guess. It's like, I guess it's interesting that they never bring up that he is like, it's never explicitly a thing that they're like he has a human mother. It's just he's a vampire. He's not.
Oh, it is. No, it is. It is explicit that he has a human mother.
Right, but I'm saying like as a theme, it's not like I'm only half a vampire. Like
Right.
he doesn't have the angst of being half of anything. He's just like I'm a vampire.
Yeah.
Like he accepts that he's a vampire, but who wants human things, but not because like not necessarily because he was born being a human, just because he was like socially raised that way is more the story implication.
Yeah, it's definitely it's not really clear how vampires come to be.
Yeah. They don't have to find another vampire apparently. Or like I guess the thing that I would expect to be the angst if he was half is like, okay, if vampires normally live 1,000 years, he's half, he only lives 500 or something. But apparently he gets full vampire powers just by having one parent who's a vampire. So it's interesting. So many things make less and less sense the more I think about it. That's why you shouldn't think about things.
Just go with it. Just go with it. Like, this is this is a story where the emotions of it matter more than the straight up logic of it and the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely not like, it's like whatever. It's not something that we need to nitpick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely, it's not a plot hole. It's just something that's not really explained, and that's fine.
That's fine. I can accept that, if you're born of a vampire, you get all vampire powers. Like, I'm fine with that.
It's a dominant gene.
Yeah, I'm fine with a bat explaining it to him. That's fine. Yeah. I guess I also wanted to talk about snow, since snow is like an important part of this. I really like stories of snow just because I think that snow encapsulates so many, all the paradoxes that as an English major I'm supposed to love. Like I wrote in the doc, it's pretty and protective, but it's also deadly, it's silencing. But in this story, it was like what lets the voice in the silence is what came through. It's soft and fluffy. It's hard and frozen. Freezes time, but melts your heart. Aww.
Well, it freezes things, like freezes time, but it's also very ephemeral. It doesn't last.
Yeah, it has to go away, like the season of winter. Yeah, and just like the beginning when they were describing snow, I was like, I always want it to snow, and I want to I do love particularly snow, how silent it is when it's snowing enough that you hear the snow hitting each other, and I'm like, that's deep.
Yeah, that's always really nice.
Deep.
I grew up in Los Angeles, but I went to school in Rochester, New York. So snow was always at first it was very exciting, but then
it becomes annoying. Yeah.
Yeah, every year sometime around Valentine's Day, I would wake up and look out the window and just go, snow.
I think it's actually kind of the best in college though, because I don't know, it's the best when you're not the adult that has to still go to work and whatever. Yeah, Chiyuki as a teenager, she's just you get a snow day at school probably, and you go sledding and have fun in it. But when it's I have to drive in the snow, and that is unpleasant.
And in the series, snow is kind of a measure of time. Every Chiyuki counts how long she's lived by how many snows she's seen. And in the beginning, it's she probably won't live to see the next snow. And then in the sort of epilogue, they're in the snow. So snow is definitely it is a symbol that sort of encompasses everything. Everything that the story is trying to say, snow connects back to it.
Yeah. I was thinking now, I was like, yeah, it's, you know, the renewal thing. Like everything is dead now, but they're like, but there's a promise that, you know, the snow will melt and it will renew everything and water is good and whatever. Snow is pure until it gets really dirty with car nonsense. Yay.
But yeah, like it's yeah, like it's sort of this almost like this eraser. It is like relatively featureless compared to the normal landscape. It completely changes how everything looks and can be perceived. So like, you know, just like Chiyuki and Toya's perception, like their perception is different, and living for 1,000 years changes how you will change how you perceive life. But yeah, like I mean, the snow is definitely like the major, and Chiyuki's name also literally means millennium.
Millennium Snow.
You know, 1,000 snows. You know.
Yeah. Oh man, I like her way of telling time far better than just clocks. That's a better way. How many first snows have I seen? Great. That's so, you know, if it doesn't snow one year, it's just in time. Who cares? Like,
yeah, are they supposed to live in Tokyo? Because I don't think it snows every year in Tokyo. Or do they live like somewhere more north? Is that ever mentioned? I don't know.
I mean, I remember in a sidebar that Hatori described going to Yokohama, which is just south of Tokyo, to like get the shots that they were doing of like how they were on hills and like the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that meant that they were supposed to like literally be in Yokohama, or if she was just like, I'm inspired by Yokohama and they live in some nothing, no place that's real other than like Japan. But from what I can remember, the only place specifically mentioned is Yokohama, which would be, yes, that would be Tokyo area. So
yeah,
I mean, it snows in Tokyo. I don't know.
It does. I don't know if it does every year.
Yeah, I just don't know that it would be in like common occur like a super like, okay, it's winter, it's def gonna snow type of thing. Then again, I don't know enough about Japan to say that definitively one way or the other.
Yeah, it definitely snows in some parts more than others.
Yeah, I mean, if they were in Hokkaido, I'd be like, yes.
Yeah, exactly. In Hokkaido, snow is probably a pretty solid way of measuring the years, of counting the years. How many times?
Yeah, how many times?
How many first snows have you seen?
Yeah. Yeah, so do we want to move on to our love quiz about poor Satsuki that we didn't even really talk about because he's not that important?
Yeah, he doesn't end up, he's mostly just like the rival.
Yeah, but he never becomes a believable rival in my mind. You know, like you're like, he obviously Chiyuki's gonna end up with Toya. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't like how he just like, there are times when he like just kind of like jumps on her.
Yes. I think that's also what gave me Twilight vibes, where I'm like, yep, that's exactly the tactic that like Jacob uses of like, I'll just cuddle up to you and take off my shirt and like
Yeah, but yeah, he doesn't end up being very important to the story.
Poor him. I actually thought he would end up with Miyajima, and I actually couldn't tell if that was supposed to be an implication.
I don't know. I don't really like, because Miyajima, she was a kind of a pseudo rival for Chiyuki. You know, Chiyuki was jealous of her, and the fact that Toya sort of Toya sort of open, like he's getting more open to forming connections with humans, and he and Kaede connect, and so Chiyuki was very
right
started to get jealous.
But Kaede in that case was more of a believable rival than Satsuki ever was.
I think, and I think she was. But I mean, yeah, there was never any doubt about who, like, that they would end up together, that Chiyuki and Toya would get together. But I think she definitely provided sort of the perspective that like Chiyuki is a little bit selfish about her connection with Toya. She sort of wanted to be like the one that he relies on. And so when he sees her befriending another girl and someone who he actually has a fair bit of in common with, she's just sort of like realizing that like she's pretty jealous of him and of her connection with him.
Yeah. I guess what made me believe that Satsuki possibly was supposed to end up with her was that in a sidebar, Hatori was like, his story with Kaede ends sadly too. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, she dies before him because he lives for 200 years? Like,
I guess. Yeah. I mean,
I
presumably.
was like, I guess. Okay, cool. But yeah, we can do a quiz of why Satsuki is still single, even though he's so charming. Are we doing the...
All right, I have the BuzzFeed one.
All right, cool. So I will read the text again. It is just called "Why Are You Single?" The subhead is "Let's find out why you are alone." And we are Satsuki. So what's in your fridge right now? This is a perfect question for Satsuki. The answers are just condiments, meats, cheeses, the works, or leftovers from delivery, just beer, fruits and veggies, or one container of spoiled milk.
Now, I was thinking meats and cheeses the worst because he's a vampire, or he's not. He's a werewolf. Yeah. He's not a vampire. He's a werewolf.
Yeah.
But also, he's very into like health, like being healthy, and like from his grandmother. So I'm leaning towards fruits and veggies.
All right, you put fruits and veggies. I'm gonna click meats, cheeses the worst.
Okay.
We'll see if we get different answers.
How long was your last relationship? A few weeks, a few months, a year, a few years. I've never had a serious relationship. It was one night. Wink, wink.
I'm assuming he's never had a serious relationship?
Sure. But so it's that, or like it was one night, wink, wink, because he is a giant flirt.
It's true. I could also believe that he had like a few weeks. I was like, I could see that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because he in his first chapter, a girl gets mad at him because she wanted to be exclusive, and he's like, no, I told you it wasn't serious.
Yeah.
I want to go with it was one night just because of that. Like, I don't know if he's necessarily slept with anyone, but he definitely has had flings.
All right. I'm going to still put I've never had a serious relationship.
Is your room clean right now?
I took him as a cleanly person.
Yeah.
Just based on him cooking, I guess.
He's very domestic.
Yeah. Like
that's a domesticated doggy. Where do you go on a first date? Drinks, dinner, the movies, a concert. It doesn't matter to me. My bedroom. Yeah, boy.
Yeah, boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. So I mean, they do go on a first date to a club, but that is not an answer.
Yeah. Right. The closest thing would be drinks.
Yeah. If they were old enough to drink. I think once he's old enough to drink, he'll be like, yes.
Yeah. He definitely seems like that kind of guy.
He's that kind of guy. Yeah.
You can go with drinks?
Yeah.
When's the last time you showered? This morning, last night, a few nights ago. I don't sweat. My natural oils cleanse myself. I bathe. Ever heard of cologne? Ew.
I kind of am really tempted to click my natural oils cleanse myself.
Sure,
just because he's a werewolf. Yeah.
But I'm thinking I bathe partially because Japan.
Yeah.
Especially with his traditional granny, she'd probably get after him to bathe every night.
All right, you pick bathe. I'll do.
I think bathe.
Natural oils.
Choose the thing most important to you. Friends, my faith, family, money, my job, cute memes.
Friends?
Friends or family?
It's true, he does love his granny.
He does.
I'm gonna click friends though.
All right, I'll go with family. We're gonna get two completely different results. Be honest, do you even believe in true love? Yes, no, maybe so.
I think he believes in it.
Yeah. I think so too.
All right, you can what'd you get?
You got, you're too bad of a bitch.
I got that bitch too, see?
Oh! Goddamn. I'm talking Michael Jackson bad here. I'm talking like you should release 7 singles from your album. You're that bad. The way you make me feel? Too bad. You're way too bad to be held down by some punk boyfriend or girlfriend. Run free, baddest of bitches. Run free.
I feel like that actually, run free, he totally wants to just run. I'm totally in support of his werewolf delivery service. Is that what he was calling it? His competition to Amazon Prime. I'm down with it. I did appreciate the joke when they were lost in the Alps of him being like, I found humans! Oh wait. It was just you guys again. Damn it. Oh, he's such a helpless little wolf. Okay, but now it's on to shipping corner, the best corner. So this is where I gauge, we gauge how we feel about the could have been ships, the actual ships, anything else. I feel like normally there are more side character ships to make this sustainable, but really we just get a bunch of...
It's a pretty small cast.
Yeah, it's a pretty small actual lovey-dovey cast. I guess we could throw in, like, how do we feel about Johan and, well, Lydian? Yeah, Lydian. There we go. But yeah, otherwise it's just Chiyuki with a bunch of other people. And I threw in Kaeda and Satsuki because I wanted them to be a couple. Whatever. I hope they were a real couple. So how do you feel that Satsuki and Chiyuki, would that have been good?
No.
Bad?
No.
It would have been bad?
He's not very respectful of her boundaries.
Oh, that's true. He's not respectful.
He definitely, like, he jumps all over her a lot of the time. Like, Yamiharu has to step in and stop him when they're in the mansion in the Alps. And I think it gets better in the second half, partly because, like I said, Hatori's gained a lot of maturity as a writer.
Yeah.
But no, I don't really like him and her. I don't really like Satsuki and Chiyuki.
That's fair. I can see that. I guess I'm just not endeared to, like, Satsuki. You know, she again commented in the sidebar being like, yep, people are like, he's just Tamaki. And I'm like, he is Tamaki, but like a worse version of Tamaki, I guess.
Yeah.
A less compelling version of Tamaki from Ouran.
He doesn't really have Tamaki's charm.
Yeah. And like him being a werewolf is pretty like what I like wolves. Like I really, really love wolves, but I'm like, I'm not super compelled to like you because of that. It's nice that, like, yeah, the most endearing relationship he has is to his granny, and
yeah. I mean, I don't dislike him as a character.
Yeah.
I just, like, I don't...
I like him as a friend to Chiyuki. Like, especially in the second half, I feel like they had a lot of good friend chemistry.
I agree.
Of, like, making fun of Toya together, but not in a necessarily super mean way. And, yeah, he was certainly more respectful of her boundaries. Obviously we hate Kei and Chiyuki.
Yeah, that was really bad.
Soup's bad.
Like, oh god, just nothing. No good.
There's no redeeming part of it. Ugh. So we like Toya and Chiyuki, right? Like,
yeah, I really, really like them. Like, I really do. Their romance just really works for me really well. Like in the first couple of volumes, he's a little too rude to her.
Which is again something that Hatori like acknowledges. She's like, I can't have him keep speaking like this because it's terrible.
Yeah, but like, you know, in the second half, like, I think their dynamic really works really well. I like Chiyuki a lot. I think they complement each other. You know, she's just like, she's really outgoing and goofy. Like the fact that she pursues him, I think, kind of instead of like waiting for him to notice her. And plus that, like, that thread of selfishness that she has, I think makes her a much more compelling character. And I think, you know, she works really well with him. What can I say about him that like really like accentuates like how I think they work together? Like a lot of it is I like Chiyuki a lot.
And she likes Toya, and he's not so bad. So
yeah. But
I mean, I think what I liked about their dynamic is that, you know, even though Chiyuki does have this initial selfish desire to be with him, I think she's also very respective of his existential angst.
Yeah. No, that's
Even though
true.
she's very silly and whatever, she's like, I understand that that's how you feel. And she doesn't ever tries to tell him that he's like wrong for feeling that. She's just like, I just hope that you can see my point of view as well, and like why I think this would be good.
Right. She's never like, how can you say you have too much time when I have so little?
Yeah, she doesn't make him feel guilty for feeling that way, I guess.
Yeah, no, that definitely, like, that's legit. And he's rough around the edges and he pushes her away, but at the end of the day, like I can understand the way he pushes her away as opposed to a lot of shoujo boyfriends who are just kind of mean.
Mm-hmm. Right, like he certainly overtly acknowledges, like, I pushed you away because I was afraid if I had to choose you, like, it would just lead to bad things. Like, I didn't want to lose you, so I didn't choose you at all in the first place.
Right. And I don't know, like a lot of shoujo manga, the guy is very aggressive, like Satsuki is to Chiyuki.
Yeah.
But Toya never, like, he's not even shown as like having to fight off like the urges either for her blood or like for her body. He, even when he starts to relax into their relationship and to bond with her, like, there's never an interaction between them that doesn't feel consensual, or that doesn't feel non-consensual, which is pretty important for me with shoujo manga and is shockingly rare.
It's very rare.
So yeah, like I really like that about their relationship. Basically, Chiyuki is good and Toya is not gross.
Yeah.
Is what it boils
like,
down to.
Bare minimum in show, like, it's actually very rare in shoujo manga, but should be the bare minimum, but like, cool. Yeah, I guess, yeah, I definitely did not consciously appreciate how Toya is not, it's not the Twilight thing of like, oh, I have to resist your blood and the blood is connected to sex and I have to like resist that and like chastity and blah blah blah, like outdated Victorian
Vampirism
views.
is sex.
Yeah, vampirism is sex. And I'm like, yes, it is refreshing that he did not do that. And he was just like, cool, like we can kiss. Let's go.
Yeah.
Fun. So Chiyuki and Toya, one true pairing.
I mean, yeah, they're pretty much the only real choice.
They're only one true choice in this. All right, so this is our final segment. We'll do final thoughts. We did get a Twitter question before recording. So it was from Ergo Emos. The question is, would you want this adapted into an anime or movie? Who would you want to direct, write, produce it? What do you think would need to change or shift to adapt it to animation and or the modern viewership, if anything?
I would love to see an anime adaptation of this.
Would you want it to only do the second half, or would you want it to be all of it?
I would probably want to do a maybe like an updated version of the first half. Like the episodic stuff isn't bad. It's just that, like, like I said, I've said over and over in this podcast, Hatori's storytelling just wasn't quite there.
Can we just cut Keigo out? Can we?
Yeah. Or like make him like less like,
don't lock her in a room. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna like tie you up and lock you in a room to keep you away from this boy, like, or make the text like more explicitly condemning of him doing that. I don't know. So yeah, like I think that's something. I think it would make a really good anime. Actually,
I think it would make a good like 13 episode anime or something. That would be dope.
Or even like a. I mean, do you think it could be a full, like, or I say full? I'm showing my age when I say that. Like, a 26 episode run, or do you think that would be stretching it out too much?
I feel like that would be stretching, unless they came up with new material, which is perfectly fine.
Because Hatori said that there were things that she wanted to include that she just couldn't because it was too, like, there just wasn't space.
So if they got that would be cool.
Yeah, so including more stuff about Lydian, or having more give Satsuki a chance to do more stuff, or
Yeah.
develop his relationship with Kaede more.
Yeah. Actually, now I really want this to be an anime. I know it's not
Right?
gonna happen, but like
It would be so good.
it would be
You
so
never know.
good.
They're adapting more and more older properties.
That's true. But admittedly, one of the reasons I chose to do a shoujo manga podcast in particular was that I mean, there are plenty of shoujo anime, right? But I was
not
like,
really these days.
not really these. Right, that's exactly what I felt. I was like, I never hear anybody get hype over a shoujo anime. Like, I went and when I was unemployed in the beginning of 2013 or whatever, I was like, I'm specifically going to watch shoujo anime. And that's when I watched like Kimi ni Todoke and Skip Beat and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I just feel like this is so rare. Like maybe there's like one each year or something that's like lauded in any way.
Yeah, the way that the market has evolved over time is that like when like the people producing anime were like fans themselves, like in the like starting in the aughts, the industry was still so male dominated that like they were making the stuff they wanted, and so Moe was sort of starting to get more and more dominated, and I think very, very little shoujo anime was being made during that period. And now like that's sort of dying away, and I think there's more interesting stuff coming out, but we're still sort of like the situation is improving, but it's not like good yet,
Yeah. So that's why I was like, well, there's certainly more shoujo manga than there is anime. And I feel like there's more shoujo manga that people are like, I wish this was a freaking anime. Like,
right? They're adapting like an old shoujo manga, I think. Next season, Gaku and Babysitters.
Oh.
I feel like that's an older series. Let's see.
I am not sure.
I mean, no, it's not old. It's 2009, still
it's
running.
Older.
It's not new.
Yeah, it's not brand spanking new.
But a lot of the shoujo stuff I feel like they were releasing also was like a lot of the goofy comedies, like Kiss Him Not Me, First Love Monster, which I did not watch. Stuff like that. So I am hoping that shoujo manga makes a comeback. Yeah, I think an anime of Millennium Snow would be great. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I'm always so confused about like, Ouran was like a pretty big anime, and I'm just like, why don't like, I guess Watase's things used to get like she's had multiple anime adaptations, but I'm just like, yeah, all those things seem to have died.
I mean, but how long has it been since we've had a Watase?
Yeah, exactly. I don't like there was that one, but it was for
Arata,
the shonen one.
But and no one watched Arata.
Yeah, because it sucked. Like it took like that story has like 20 something volumes, and they made a 12 episode anime out of it. And it like everything I heard about it was just that it sucked.
Yeah, like no one cared about Arata.
Yeah, I'm like, why isn't Genbu Kaiden an anime? Like, Shuji got a like freaking 50 something episode anime, and then the sequel gets nothing. I don't understand.
Yeah,
makes me sad.
Like, and as for director, who is it? Kyoko Sayama directed Vampire Knight and Skip Beat. And I think she does really well with shoujo.
Interesting. Those are two very different. I have very different feelings about both those series. Yeah.
They're not going to be like earth-shattering adaptations, but I
actually really liked Skip. Like, I haven't read the manga, and I know that it has a story that goes farther.
Parts.
Oh, it's all the good parts. Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I say that like I've read all of the manga. Rather, I should say I started losing interest in the manga around when the anime ended because it had a lot of stuff that I have issues with.
Oh, great! It's like 40 volumes at this point.
Yeah, and like Sayama, she also directed Pretier, which is an older series. That the anime version, because the anime came out in 2001. So she has a lot of experience with shoujo series. she's not. Oh, she also directed Miyuki-chan in Wonderland and Angel Sanctuary. She's not the most like remarkable director. She doesn't have the strongest sense of style, but she could definitely turn it into a solid adaptation. And honestly, I don't know if I'm just saying this because she's a director I really like, but Rie Matsumoto, who directed Kyoso Giga and the first season of Blood Blockade Battlefront, because I feel like she's actually got a pretty good sense for like the shifting between like the madcap and the pensive,
right? Yeah.
Which I think could be really interesting with this series, because I think she's definitely she's got a distinct style. She's done Pretty Cure, but she's never really done any like shoujo romance sort of stuff. But I think it would be interesting to see a sort of a classically shoujo manga done with her directing style.
That would be interesting. I don't follow directors and producers that much. That's why I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, you've named series that I've watched. So like, I'm like, okay, I get it. Yeah, those both seem like good contenders. Having watched Skip Beat and Vampire Knight, I'm like, yeah, those were like, they were adaptations. They were competently done. And Blood Blockade Battlefront certainly has the aesthetics definitely going for it.
Yeah.
So I'd agree with that. And then the last part of what would you change or shift? I mean, again, I would definitely change some of Keigo's bits. And just kind of update the first half. Yeah, with just
more modern sensibilities,
concrete storytelling. Yeah, but otherwise, like second half, man, like no, just make it an anime.
Yeah, and I'd like to see. I don't think you can have the second half without.
I mean, you would need the setup, right? Like you would need at least the first volume.
But I think there would need to be a little bit of a shift to adapt it to modern sensibilities. But I don't think for the second half too much would have to be changed. Just like maybe flesh out the characters a little bit more. Tell the stories that Hatori didn't get to tell because of space restrictions.
Yeah, it was fun reading her columns being like, I wrote 20 pages over what I was supposed to write. Oops. Okay. Wait a second.
Or, talking about how much it hurt looking at her old volumes.
Oh, that was the best. I love it.
Just like, oh God, why did I do that?
Just shut it repeatedly. God, it's so bad.
Hashtag relatable.
All right. So do we have any other final thoughts, or should I go to the outro?
Read Millennium Snow. And I think that pretty much covers it.
It was good. You will have feelings. They will be good feelings. It's not so painful that you're like crying, right? It's not like it's just like, oh yes, like solid felt a thing.
Yeah. My the tagline that we came up with at Anifem for Fushigi Yugi is,
oh goodness,
you will have an emotion.
Accurate.
I think that goes for Millennium Snow too.
Thanks for listening to Shojo and Tell. Comments, questions, constructive criticism, concerns? Need to gush about your OTP? Email shoujoandtell@gmail.com or leave a comment about this episode on shoujoandtell.com/millenniumsnow. You can also follow @shoujoandtell on Twitter and Facebook. This is a new podcast, so it'd be great if you could leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever else reviews can be left. This will help the podcast reach more hearts, or at least ears. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next time for I don't actually know. I didn't plan that far ahead. Oops. It's just gonna have to be a surprise. Whatever it is, stay tuned for it. I kind of actually really want it to be Fushigi Yugi, but like maybe not. I don't know. Don't hold me to that. Until then, bye.
Bye.